Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to Wrestler Weekly Presents. I'm your host, Scottie Richardson, and thank you for coming back and joining me again this week for Territory Talk. You know, I think that instead of Wrestler Weekly Presents, this season we should have just called this Territory Talk, as we have been traveling the country and going back in time, if you will, to the days of the territories and the days of things like this, the programs, the things that you would get at the events. Now, everyone knows I love wrestling mags. It shaped my childhood. Season 1, go back and check out those 15 episodes and bonus episodes on YouTube and see all. We started from 1972. We went to 1992 with my signed mags. This season, we have been going through a lot of my old programs. And the first episode, we hit Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. And then the episode 2, we went to the Midwest and we went to the AWA territory and checked that out. And then, man, what an awesome episode last week was with David Chappell here from the Mid-Atlantic Gateway. And we talked about Mid-Atlantic and his thoughts and memories. But this week, we are going to Georgia. That's right. The Ringsider was the official program of Georgia Championship Wrestling. Atlanta, Hotlanta, the hotbed of professional wrestling. The WTBS days. And this week, I have a special guest who not only lives in Georgia, but is from Georgia. And we're going to get him on the line here in a few minutes. But that is Nick McDaniel of the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast Network. Nick and his buddy Myron, two great friends of mine that do an outstanding job with not only old school wrestling, but the new age and the new school professional wrestling. These guys travel the circuit. They are in high school gyms, just like I was in high school gyms back in the 70s. These guys are doing it now in 2018, and they're checking out some of the hottest and great talent that is out there trying to get going and get their careers going now. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some other things. Obviously, this is the man right here, Dory Funk Jr. We'll talk about him. This program we'll get into. We got 3 Ringsider programs, and then we have a special hot mag that we'll talk about at the end. So we're just going to jump right into the deep end. If you want to support the show, go to ProWrestlingTees.com /Wrestler Weekly. You can check out the t-shirts and merchandise there and support the show. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Make sure you are subscribed to this YouTube channel so you can get the episodes right in your inbox. Share the video and give us a thumbs up. Get all the commercials out of the way because we're going to jump right into it with Nick. Let's get him on the horn, and we're going to get right into Georgia Championship Wrestling. Nick, are you with me?
Yes, sir. I'm here, buddy. How's it going, Scotty?
Going great, man. Just talking about you and Myron and what a great job you guys do with not only old school wrestling but new school professional wrestling. And we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But, I told our fans that, I should have called this show Territory Talk because we get kind of been spinning the globe here. We've been talking about Midwest with AWA. We've been in the Mid-Atlantic area. But this week, Georgia Championship Wrestling, the program, the official program of the events was called the Ringsider. We're going to go through 3 of those today, and then we'll got the hot mag at the end. But, Nick, you not only live in Georgia, but you are from Georgia. Tell us where exactly you are and how you got started with becoming a fan of professional wrestling.
Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you, I live just in a little town northeast of Atlanta. It's called Buford. Like I said, nobody could probably have a landmark on it, other than the fact it's where the southeast largest mall is, the Mall of Georgia.
There you go.
So it's in that town. Other than that, nobody would know. But So, like I said, just a little north, but quick, easy access, so I can hit Atlanta in like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. 2 hours if traffic's bad. You know that story.
Yeah, absolutely. 6 lanes and all.
Absolutely. It's a packed house going in and out. But to answer your question is, how did I get started in it? It's a favorite story that I've shared, probably like I said, 100 times on our podcast. 3 years old, first memories that I have is literally sitting in my great-grandfather's lap. Like I said, it's a Saturday night. It's somewhere between 6 and 8, and we're watching a black and white television. And, I know it's between 6 and 8, and then I know it's on a Saturday because it's, Gordon Soley, Georgia Championship Wrestling, and I see the guy, Dusty Rhodes, who became my guy for pretty much, for my whole life. I've been a Dusty guy.
Yep.
And after that, I was hooked, man. And, 30-plus years later, I'm, at this point now, 40-plus years later, man, God, am I old. I'm still a wrestling guy. What can I say?
That's right. I talked about this. I put this little liner in my book, Family Bacon Wrestling, which should be out soon. And just about, a family in Virginia, and we moved to Florida in 1981. But we had relatives in between, and all those holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, spring break from school, those kinds of things, we would travel up that I-95 corridor, and depending on who's, what uncle, what aunt we got to see, and depending on that weekend, but I do remember distinctly seeing Georgia Championship Wrestling and Gordon Soley, and when Ted DiBiase was the national heavyweight champion, and just such a memory that's stuck in my mind, because we only read, you only read about, from where I was at, we only read about Georgia Championship Wrestling in the mags. I grew up no cable, rabbit ears. We talked last week with David Chappell, Mid-Atlantic Gateway, about my dad getting mad at me during the wrestling and saying, "Go get a coat hanger so we can fix this antenna." And we would try to rig it up there so we could watch wrestling. But here's my thing, Nick, and we talk about Georgia, and you're right outside of Hotlanta, which was the hotbed for professional wrestling during this time. And we talk about, the legends. If I take all of my Wrestler Weekly friends and we go to the barbershop in Buford, and we're sitting around and we're just talking wrestling. Some of the old timers, you talk about your great grandfather. The legends. Who are some of the guys that because we're going to hit on a few of these as we go through the mag, but just off the top of your head, who are some of these legends that Georgia remembers as far as the fandom?
It's a lot of people want to easily throw out, your flares and things, but that's to me later. Let's go back even a little further than that. Guys that you're going to talk about, are the Andersons. Yeah, and I don't mean, I'm talking the originals, those guys.
The Minnesota Wrecking Crew.
Absolutely. Tony Atlas, Dickie Slater, Mass Superstar. Again, like I said, Dusty. I was a Dusty guy. Yeah. Some unsung heroes out of Georgia. Thunderbolt Patterson, Mr. Wrestling number 2. Then, the Armstrongs would make that trip over from Alabama, and they, had a great name. And there's a great series going on right now with a friend of our show, the Tennessee stud Ron Fuller.
Yeah.
His family came over and helped build Georgia, wrestling from the ground up. So
no doubt about it.
Obviously, the Fullers have a legacy here as well. So that's kind of, some of the old school names I would throw out there.
All right, so this is the Ringsider, and this is from Friday, January 15th, 1971. Obviously, Dory Funk Jr. on the cover. We're going to start with a world champion. We're going to end with a world champion, so keep that in mind. And this is great because I'm going to show the fans this. This is tonight's wrestling card. And let me just throw some of these names at you. The Georgia Tag Team Championship, Ray Gunkel and Buddy Fuller are challenging the Assassins. I remember we're 1971 here. The champions are the Assassins. And then we're going to take... this is great because they even put the intermission. They're going to tell you when you get intermission, and then you're going to come back, and it's going to be a 6-man round robin elimination tournament. Winner to wrestle the world's champion Dory Funk Jr. So here's some of the names that are going to get that shot at the world title: Buddy Colt, Paul DeMarco, Luke Graham, El Mongol, Kubla Khan, and Bob Griffin. And then we're going to take another intermission. And then we're going to come back with a tag team match of Michelle Dubois and Fidel Castillo versus the Dalton brothers, Skandar Akbar versus Salento Rodriguez. And what's great is, when you can find a program where a fan actually was at the event and is taking notes. It's kind of like in baseball when you would score the game. I'm sure, Nick, through your, tell us about, because you go to not only high school, this is in a high school gym. Matter of fact, what's great is the winner's circle on the back. They even circle your face. And so if you have this program and you find your face, it says to make sure you take this to Ed Capral at the intermission time and receive 2 tickets for next week. So here, you got to love the old school gimmicks. When you're sitting in a metal chair in a high school gym in 2018, Nick, what's the vibe?
It varies from show to show, and we've talked about this off air, me and you, about
absolutely.
how there's just different types of shows now, and that's going to determine your crowd. But to me, I tell people all the time, some of the best value you're ever going to get for your dollar is going to one of these, rec centers, high school gyms, YMC, whatever. And, sometimes, man, it's $10.
Right.
I mean, $12 is an expensive ticket to, a small town show. And I'm like, man, that's what a movie costs or less.
Oh, less, I'm sure.
And it's, to me, the excitement that I still get is some of the best stories I will tell you is sit behind a little kid, it's one of his first shows, or he's, it's the best crowd to be around are little kids and people in their 60s.
That's right.
Because they still believe it's real from back in the day, or the kid's so immersed in it that he hasn't been jaded, like a lot of wrestling fans have.
Right.
And the excitement, they will suck you back into why you loved wrestling to begin with. And it's seeing these young stars, put everything they've got into it. And let's be honest, and seeing some of the legends that still, hit these tours, meeting some of those guys. I mean, and that's just it. I think the up-close accessibility that you get with these stars, that you can walk up to them and talk to them and get an autograph, and that you can't get at a big show. That's my big thing to say is get out and check them out for sure.
Well, and I think that, we talk about Dory Funk Jr., any Funk brothers, because I'm going to throw you out one here. Now, check this out, Nick. Now, this is one I'm sure that, I'll probably get an email or a message, private message, as soon as this episode's over. And Nick and Myron are going to send me an email, and they're going to say, "Come on, man. I know we got some stuff that we can make a trade, because we've got to have this. This is the Ringsider, Volume 76, number 50, Georgia's official Wrestling Weekly. The NWA ordered a rematch. Disqualification rule waived. World Championship on the line. Signed by, look at these 2 legends, Terry Funk and Mr. Wrestling 2. What are your thoughts, Nick, on these 2 icons?
Well, man, first of all, I'll start on the left there. Terry Funk, the man of a million retirements, right?
That's
Let's start
right.
with that. But back in everybody, especially the younger, they remember the hardcore Terry Funk.
Yeah.
But me, I remember the guy who could really, really work and could really wrestle and put on great matches. And guy on the right, like I said earlier, Wrestling 2 is probably, to me, one of the most underrated wrestlers of all time. That I've got a good friend of mine who wrestled for a long time, and that's who he wanted to be when he grew up. Yeah. That was he wanted to be Wrestling 2. Totally underrated in my opinion.
No, I couldn't agree more. And what's funny is Terry Funk is one of those guys, and it's really a shame. It's a shame just from a fandom perspective that a lot of fans only remember ECW Funk or hardcore Terry. But man, you and I remember the Texas Bronco. We remember the guy in the 70s that had the 10 pounds of gold. And that's something that, you can't take away from his legacy. And I've had an opportunity to meet Terry a few times, and just what a great guy. Even at these events, he will take the time, he will talk to you. But Mr. Wrestling 2, I've said this numerous times. I think he could have held the 10 pounds of gold. I know the NWA had some stipulations back in the day about masked men wearing the world's title. But one of those things that I really think around 78, right there in that 1978 wheelhouse, when he was just, when you talk about most popular, and you know, obviously you're a Dusty guy, and you know, I came from Mid-Atlantic with Ricky Steamboat, with how popular he was, but Mr. Wrestling too. I mean, he was one of the most popular wrestlers ever, but when he took that heel turn, it was just legendary. And so, you know, if you're a new school fan and you want to get more, you know, go and check it out, man. Do some research, because these two guys were definitely icons in our sport. And we say our because we've adopted it for sure. So let's see what's in this one. Now, these are great because this one is kind of like last week we talked about this in Mid-Atlantic, but this actually showed the champions. So, for instance, if you see this, we've got Terry Funk as the world's champion. But here's great. Bill Watts, they're showing that he's the North American champion. So they've got that in the Georgia territory. And then you've got the Georgia Tag Team Champions, which were the Anderson brothers, the old Minnesota Wrecking Crew. And then you've got the Georgia Heavyweight Champion in Dirty Dick Slater. So any comments there on these guys? You know, Dick Slater was in Georgia for quite a while, I know.
Dickie Slater was one of the real tough guys that, you know, that you always heard about, that, you know, he could go toe-to-toe, and we're talking at the bar or in the ring, and that's, you know, those stories are legendary. And as far as Bill Watts goes, that's you know, and I kind of want to kick myself for mentioning, because, you know, a lot of people remember him for running, you know, that Mid-South UWF. They don't remember that he was a, you know, great worker that traveled the country and, you know, had a little run here in Georgia, obviously. Yeah,
no doubt about it. And then obviously the Andersons, and for those that don't know, there was quite a big feud, and it was the Anderson brothers against Mr. Wrestling 1 and 2, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But, you know, I knew Ole and Gene from Mid-Atlantic, and being the World Tag Team Champions and battling Flair and Valentine and those guys. But any notes there, Nick, on the Andersons in Georgia?
I mean, forever, as long as, like I said, my entire life, if you hear the Andersons, and it's stretched, you know, many incarnations across, you know, but if you heard the Andersons, I mean, all you knew is it was going to be a tough, brutal fight. They, you know, worked the body part better than anybody, whether it was Ole and Gene and Ole and Arn and so forth and so on. But yeah, the Andersons in pro wrestling as a whole, I think, ring true as it's true force. Now,
Nick, here's one for you. Throw you a bone here. Big Dust with the, you gotta love these homemade T-shirts with the boogie on the front. But there he is in a 6-man with Mr. Wrestling 1, Tim Woods, and Mr. Wrestling 2, and there he's dropping the bionic elbow. Any Dusty stories, Nick? I know you're a true fan.
I totally am. You know, it's one of the biggest moments of your life as a little kid, as Dusty walked by me, you know, in the crowd and just touched your hand, you know, high-fiving everybody, that kind of stuff. And, man, it's, you know, Dusty's one of the interviews I always wished I got that I never got, you know. But, you know, it's kind of is what it is at this point in life. But, yeah, and those shirts are classic, man. You go back and look at some of them, they just make you chuckle to yourself that, like, did he iron that thing on? Or?
That's right. I want to read this to our fans. You know, Freddie Miller, he's best known for, you know, his tagline of "Don't miss it, be there." He was the editor of the Ringsider, and, you know, to the fans, early response to the Best of Georgia Championship Wrestling has been very gratifying. The new Sunday series premiered last week, and we're glad you liked the idea. Atlanta is a key town in the nation this week. The NWA ordered a rematch for the world's title, disqualification rule being waived, and a special taping of the matches for cable television. With Gordon Soley doing the commentary, Vince McMahon Jr., the color, and a sensational card. Aren't you glad you decided to be there? I mean, Freddie Miller. He doesn't get more Georgia Championship Wrestling than Freddie Miller.
Oh, yeah.
And then you got to like the Vince plug there. I thought that was good. Now here's one.
Forget that.
I know they do forget that. Here's the national tag team champions, the Mr. Wrestling 1. Now, Mr. Wrestling 1, Tim Woods, being a Mid-Atlantic guy, I remember Tim Woods. He held the U.S. Heavyweight title with my favorite belt, the red leather that Flair had and Steamboat had and Johnny Valentine and Blackjack Mulligan. But he's also a great tag team guy and held titles in Mid-Atlantic. But here's Mr. Wrestling 1 and 2 together on the Ringsider. Nick, what do you think about this tag team?
Well, I mean, that's, Wrestling 1 and 2, man. What can you say? There was obviously, at that point, there was no better mass tag team. But like I said, 2 was just, to this day, man, you can, and this is kind of something you asked me about earlier, like, when you go to some of these small shows and gyms, when guys do the running knee, man, a lot of times they holler out, Wrestling 2,
That's right.
hit that knee lift. It's still famous today.
It's funny because I've been watching the Mid-Atlantic on the network, and Jake the Snake Roberts there in 81, 82, he would use that high knee lift. This was before the DDT that he was using, man. He was just crushing people with the old Mr. Wrestling 2 knee lift was his finishing move. Now this Ringsider, this is volume 80, number 26, the Georgia Tag Team Champions. And then inside, this one has the list of the champions. And we're talking about Harley Race is now the world champion. National TV champion, Terry Taylor. A lot of people just, they crush on Taylor because of the rooster gimmick and all that later. But Terry Taylor was a heck of a wrestler in his before the rooster gimmick. Georgia heavyweight champion, here's a name for you, Dennis Condrey. Now, for fans that know Dennis Condrey, I'm a big fan because of the Midnight Express. Dennis Condrey was part of the Midnight Express. And then here's Georgia Junior heavyweight champion, Stan Lane. Another connection to the Midnight Express. How about some of these names, Nick?
When I saw that picture of that match, that actually made me laugh. And I thought about that. I was like, what the irony of the Midnight Express, 2 people in there, and they're, singles champions. And then I'm going to go back to what you said about Taylor. I 100% agree. I remember him all the way back even in the Mid-South and that stuff. I think he gets a kind of a bad rap. I think he was a heck of a talent, and I think it was just the rooster gimmick is unfortunately what a lot of the world remembers him for. But they should go back and definitely check out that Mid-South and that Georgia stuff. Now
here's a tag team. We talk about the New Day, but this tag team, we're talking about the Freebirds. Georgia Championship Wrestling. When I was a young kid, I wanted wrestling mags to have the Freebirds in it. Man, I was such a fan. You talk about marking out. I was a big-time Freebirds fan. What do you got on Bad Street?
Man, I could go on for hours about the Freebirds. I won't lie, because here in Georgia, they were a huge thing.
Huge.
I don't know that they built a 6-man any better than that, ever. Even the New Day, like I said, a lot of people talk about that. You had Buddy to take the bumps.
Yep.
You had Terry to get in there and do the work, and you had Michael to be the mouthpiece. I mean, it was the consummate, 3 pieces to put together. And no matter where they went, they won. They were on top, and they drew money. I mean, and whether you loved them or you hated them, the Freebirds were, they were to me. They still, and if you ask me, if you go back in one of our shows where we rank tag teams,
right,
they're in my top 3 all time on tag teams.
All right, now we're going to go through one last guy on the Ringside. On the back cover is Stan Hansen. I got to meet Stan last year. It was such an honor, and what a great guy. But he's mostly, I would say, mostly known for his work in Japan. But obviously he held the AWA World title. But in Georgia, had a great run. He had a great run, Nick.
Stan Hansen, kind of very similar in the sense of what I've said about Dick Slater, that just tough as nails. I mean, it wasn't a gimmick. Stan Hansen was Stan Hansen. The funny stories about Stan you always hear is how blind he was in the ring and he couldn't see.
Yeah.
But, just like you said, I mean, tearing through, I don't know that it gets much better when you think of, to me, when I think of real Texas, Texas redneck cowboys, it's Stan Hansen and that bull rope. And he's one of the first wrestlers as a kid that terrified me. That, I thought he got loose, he could kill you.
All right, so we started the show with a world champion. It's Hot Mag time. And this week's Hot Mag, is from April of 2017. If you follow us on Wrestler Weekly, this guy was our Wrestler of the Year for 2017. And ironically, he was our Wrestler of the Year for 2016. So here he is. He's a Georgia boy, AJ Styles, the phenomenal one, signed PWI Wrestler of the Year, and he has just been named Wrestler of the Year in PWI again. They went back to back with him, and that new mag will hit the newsstands on February 3rd, so check that out. I know I will, because I want to try to get mine signed to go with this one. But Nick, tell us about AJ Styles. I know you've got an unbelievable story when we're talking about Georgia's own.
Georgia Bulldog boy through and through. I'll tell you what's crazy. AJ Styles went to high school probably 10, 15 minutes from my house.
Man.
Still to this day, lives super close. And like you said, about a little over a week ago, I went to a show, because you were talking about the little shows that I go to, up in Cornelia, Georgia, at the now famous Landmark Arena.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they like to say that SmackDown is the house that AJ Styles built, but there's they jokingly call it the barn up in Cornelia, Georgia, where AJ Styles truly built that house. When he wrestled for a small promotion called NWA Wildside, tore the house down, many, many matches there. I saw him give a shout out to Frankie Air Paris, who a lot of people know he went on to tag with. Yep. But they tore that Landmark Arena down many times with some great matches. And I just recently was in that, like I said, in that arena watching a card recently. And you just cannot hear enough great things about AJ Styles. Right. And I will second that he is, in my opinion, right now, the greatest wrestler in the world.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I'll put that against anybody.
Absolutely. And I would have loved to have seen him. I think he could have wrestled in any era, and that's usually the measuring stick. When you look at history, could they transcend their gimmick or whatever it might be, in ring, out of the ring? But I think that he's a guy that definitely could do that. Nick, give us a couple names real quick. Somebody that maybe our fans at Wrestler Weekly have never heard of. Somebody that you've seen in some of those small gyms, small arenas, rec centers, bingo halls. Give us a couple names that somebody to look out for, so we can follow them.
A couple that I'll give out, and it's no shock these guys won awards on our year-end awards. There's a young man coming through who you've never heard of, but you should. His name is Ike Cross. Okay. The kid is super young, super talented, can do things. You ever have a wrestler that you tell him, right now you can do things physically beyond what you're, should be able to do. Right. He actually needs to, and that's what I tell him, pull it back a little, because he will do things that are just insane. But the guy will be a champion somewhere, and I've told him that 100 times to his face. Another young man who people may have seen if they've watched Evolve. He's made some appearances there and some other places. You want to talk about young? This kid is 20. Ooh. And his name is Austin Theory. Okay. And that I saw him at an age of 19 wrestle in a match in a small gym, in Monroe, Georgia, and walked over to a friend of mine who had been, he had made it pretty successful in this business, and pointed at him and go, that kid's going to be a star. And everybody in the gym says, yes, he is. And again, his name is Austin Theory. Definitely check him out.
Awesome.
And then something more of mine in your old school style, there's a big bruising force that just tears through. He's in Georgia, and he's made his way out now to some other territories out in Mississippi and things like that. But watch out for a guy who calls himself the Silver Tongue, because, man, the guy's got the gift of gab, and he can talk and talk, but, man, he's a bruiser, and his name's O'Shea Edwards. Those three, to me, I would tell you, whether it be Japan, whether it be, Ring of Honor, or, WWE, NXT, whatever, those three names you will hear, I promise you, in probably the next 5 years, you're going to see them somewhere, as a name.
Awesome. And I apologize for the audio. We've got some idiot that's out here blowing leaves and messing up my episode. But that's showbiz. That's the way it goes here at the big time at Wrestler Weekly Presents. And so I probably shouldn't have called him an idiot, but he is messing up Nick's interview here. Those names, I wanted Nick to do that because when those guys make it big, like an AJ Styles, we're going to rerun this episode 5 years from now because some of those names that Nick just gave out might be Wrestler of the Year. Nick, give us Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast Network. What do you guys got going on that we need to know about?
Man, over at Tapped Out, we got a lot of stuff going on, but one specifically I know your audience will be really interested in is it aired, this past Thursday, but it's all, as always, you can go into the archives and find it. Our buddy Lewis had a chance to interview NWA, legend, one half of the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton.
Absolutely.
You definitely want to check it out. That, like I said, that aired last Thursday. It'll be in the archives. And we've got some others, man. I always recommend going in and checking them out. One of my favorite interviews, we had the Tennessee Stud on, and he went for almost 2 hours. So check that one out in the archives. Bullet Bob Armstrong, again, those are some names that your fans, would really like. And we carry a lot of the stuff from the current indie guys.
Right.
We have them on to give them an opportunity. Check us out. We're at Tapped Out Pod. That's all pretty much, if you remember that, that's pretty much all you need, because Tapped Out Pod will find us on Twitter, tappedoutpod.com, tappedoutpod@gmail.com. You can email us, and Facebook. We're on all the social medias, but like I said, if you put in Tapped Out Pod, you'll find us.
Awesome.
So that's pretty much the easy ways to get a hold of us.
All right, and wrestling fans, you know where to find us at Wrestler Weekly across the board, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Don't forget Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you'll get this episode in your inbox. So if you want to support the show, obviously go to ProWrestlingTees.com, and you can check out merchandise there at Wrestler Weekly. So again, Nick, thanks for joining us this week. Fans, I'm going to do the old Freddie Miller. So on for now, and don't forget, next week we're gonna travel the country again. It's Territory Talk here at Wrestler Weekly Presents. Don't miss it. Be there.